So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to import all of our main Minecraft settings and everything into the program so we could connect the world to the program. That's pretty simple. This is the main block, and it's just going to be the main part of our function or our program that we're going to run. So first thing we're going to do is create a dictionary called places. That's just basically going to hold all the places that we're going to use in our tour, and we're going to store the coordinates inside tuples. We're just going to define a few coordinates here, and this is all the places we're going to use. It's pretty self-explanatory. Spawn core just means spawn coordinate, snow coordinate, beach coordinate, end coordinate, and so on. This just makes it a lot easier for us to organize, especially down here, where we're assigning these values to an associated value in the dictionary, and it just makes it a lot clearer rather than typing in all the numbers in a form of a tuple. So then we're just going to go ahead and define or associate these values with another value that we created, variable that we created to be placed inside the dictionary, and this variable is going to be associated with this variable, which is the tuple up here. And this is pretty simple too. Spawn, snow, pretty easy to understand. Down here, it's going to be our main program, you call it. This here is a function that we define down here, and it's just basically going to be the teleporting function, or call it the jump function here. It's going to take two arguments, place 1 and place 2, which I'll explain later. The jump function basically teleports the player from this place to this place, which is going to be these two coordinates. And when the player reaches that, it's just going to post a message, and this instance is just going to say, "The cliff in front of you is where many people come to wish their dreams." And that goes on and on to our last destination, the spa. It also does something, posts to chat, and from the spa, we're going to return to the spawn place at the beginning of our tour and say, "We hope you've enjoyed our tour." Now onto the main function. Now this is very complicated, but I'm going to break it down. So the jump function we define because it's sort of like jumping from place to place. As we go towards like a certain x coordinate, we're going to jump upwards. So we're going to actually teleport block by block upwards. It's going to take two arguments, obviously, what place you're going from and what place you're going to be. This is basically making sure that if the player moves his camera around or jumps around, it's not going to mess up the jumping program. This is just like a fail-safe. Sleep just means we're just going to let it wait for 5 seconds before it goes off to teleport. This is just so the player can admire the view of our tour. So X distance, we're going to split this teleportation thing into two parts because Minecraft, the world is a 3-variable system. So there's an X, there's a Z, there's a Y. The Y we're not going to worry about right now. That's just the height. The X and the Z, it's going to be pretty hard to do it together, so we decided to split it up into X and Z separately into while loops. So the X distance is basically going to be the absolute value of the first place's X coordinate to the second place's X coordinate. And what this does is just basically going to get the distance in between these two. So 10 minus 69 is going to be 79, and absolute value, just make sure that this whole thing, this X distance, won't be negative. Same thing with Z distance, same thing, except it does it with the Z coordinate. So down here we're just going to set, are we going to iterate the X distance first? Here's the X distance. If we're going to iterate it negatively or positively, because we see that, so 10 to negative 69, that's going to be negatively, negative 69 to 59, that's going to be positively. So we need to decide, so we set a variable called A. A is just a random variable name, It's easy, it's concise, it won't mess up the program, and it won't interfere with other variables like x or y, so we just went with a and b. It's pretty straightforward. Nothing fancy going on here, so we're just going to say if the place we're going to, that x coordinate, is smaller than the place we're already at, x coordinate, then we're going to iterate negatively, and elsewise we're going to iterate positively. Same down here with the z coordinate, same thing with the z coordinate, and then we get here. So this is basically going to be our count, and we labeled it pretty simply count x, count z. This is going to count the x while loop, this is going to count the z while loop for us. So we know how many steps we're taking, because we might be going negatively and we don't know when to stop, because a negative number is going to always be smaller than a positive number or vice versa. So get down here, we're just going to ignore this for now, skip down here to the while loop. So there's two while loops, you see. The first one, count x, second one, count z. Pretty obvious that this is the x while loop, z while loop, initiated separately. So the first while loop is for the x. Here it's pretty simple, we're just going to so count x, you may recall, is the count factor that we're going to set up here, and we're just going to say while count x, which is at 0 right now, is smaller than the distance in between place 1 and place 2, then we're first going to get the player's position. So we're just going to set the player's position, so we make sure that every single time the while loop runs, it's going to know the updated position. And we're going to say, well, let's go down here. Here's a much clearer example. It's a little difficult to explain because of the if and else. This basically is just a failsafe, I'll get to later. But continuing on, we set a value of 40. Basically, it's the height limit of y, and we didn't think it was necessary to get a variable in here because there's only one place we have 40 in besides here, so it's pretty simple to change. But yeah, 40 is the limit that the character is going to go up to. So we're going to say if the player's position, y's position, is smaller than 40, well, not equal to 40 because it would just reach 39. We're just going to say if it's smaller than 40, then we're going to set his position, his or her position, up by a, which is, as you may recall, up here. So we're going to iterate it negatively or positively. That's just going to iterate by 1 or -1. This here, if y is smaller than 40, then y is going to increase by 1 until, basically this does, it's going to increase y until it reaches 40, which is the limit. Z is going to stay the same because we're not going to touch that. We're going to touch that down here. Else, if y is equal to 40 or greater than 40, which shouldn't happen, then we're going to set his or her position to x plus a, still initiating this loop, because if we reach the distance, then this whole loop is just going to stop. So x plus a, y is going to stay the same because it's either probably equal to 40, and then z is going to stay the same. Down here we're just going to iterate count x to make sure that we keep iterating the count by 1, or else this while loop is just going to be an infinite loop. So we get down here, x, y, z equals MC.Player. Again, setting the player's position, that's purely just to define this variable, because after this loop, it doesn't set position again down here. So ylim is a pretty easy concept to understand. It's just y limit, and what the y limit is the player's current y position minus the place you're going to be that y position. So let's say the player's y position is currently at 40, which we defined here, and the place you want to go, or the player wants to go, has say a y coordinate of 20. So it's just going to take 40 minus the 20 and you get your y limit. Y limit will be important because we use it down here, Y start, it's basically where Y start just means that the player's Y position is just going to start going back down again, and it's going to be the Z distance minus the Y limit, which is going to be the 20. What this does is it makes sure that it's going to be pretty much a smooth jump. So we don't want it going up and then going straight, and then suddenly, well, going down and then sliding across the terrain. That won't seem smooth. It will be very weird. It won't be really a jump as we define in the function. So this basically makes sure that Y start will be the start of the decline, and that's going to make sure that it's going to be like basically a slope of 1. So when you come down, you're moving to the place 2. You're moving to the place you want to be while you're going down in the Y coordinate. So when you get down to the Y coordinate, you also get to the Z coordinate. So it's a very smooth transition. This is pretty neat. So this is the Z loop. It's basically the same thing, except here we put if count Z is bigger than or equal to Y start, because we want it to be equal when it starts to go, and bigger than, we're gonna just stop. We're not gonna iterate the X because it's the Z loop. We're gonna start decreasing the Y by 1 block at a time, and then we're gonna iterate Z by 1 block, or -1 block as we defined up here. So that basically covers these 2 loops. This is just going to run the main function. Now I'm going to explain what this huge if statement does. Basically what happened was we ran this program by itself without the if and else, and we got up to let's see, the beach and the spa. This is an interesting one because from here to here, from here to here, so -69 to -57, X to X is fine because it's just basically going to go up 40. There's enough space between these 2 coordinates that's going to go up 40. But the thing is, when we go up to 40, we can't go back down to the designated coordinate because the Z position is just way too small. That's why we decided to set up as failsafe. So we're just going to say if the absolute value of place 1's Z coordinate minus place 2's Z coordinate is smaller or equal to 40. So here we're going to say if -69 minus plus 57, absolute value that is going to be less than 40, then we're going to run this whole loop. And what this does is same thing up here. If Y is smaller than absolute value place 1 Z coordinate minus place 2 coordinate, then we're just going to say mc.player.set pos. Same thing here, iterate by 1 upwards. But once it's over that Z coordinate, then we're just going to stop. This ensures that the Z coordinate up there is never going to, well, it's not going to go up to 40 as we have down here. It's just going to go up to the limit, that the Y limit, as you may recall. But we define it down here as same concept. It's going to be the limit that the Y coordinate reaches, because the Z won't have enough to go back down. This just ensures that this is basically, this if loop is just going to be a failsafe. And else, if it doesn't meet this requirement, if the Z positions are enough, like really big, hugely spaced, then it's just going to be fine. It's going to run this normal loop. And it's just going to run our entire program, and that's how we made the program.